Good afternoon, everyone. That voiceover intro was a little much. I thought I might be walking into a wrestling match or something. And maybe I am. Thank you, Alan, for that generous, kind introduction. It's great always to be introduced by someone who you admire and who's a good friend, too. Before I begin with the formal part of my remarks, I know we have a delegation here from the Netherlands in the audience with us. It's led by Trade Minister Sigrid Kaag. I want all of you to know how much we're thinking about you with a tragic incident where there were at least 3 killed this morning, where there was gunfire opened on the metro system, people simply going about their daily lives. America stands with you. We will continue to do all we can to help you in this terrible time of tragedy. So thank you for being here with us today. You know, Alan talked about my life before I was a Secretary of State. I want you to know that much of what I did before I came here impacts what I do here today. And we're proud to co-host, along with the Netherlands, the Global Entrepreneurship Summit alongside you in The Hague on June 4th and 5th. I hope a lot of you will come join us there as well. And I want to make sure you all feel very welcome here in Kansas. It's a great place. It's a little different than The Hague, but there's a lot to love here, too. You all know, those of you who know me, we had a bunch of friends show up today, too, and Susan and I are so happy about that. I spent my summers here in Kansas as a child, mostly down in Wellington and Winfield, Kansas, and then had a chance to come back here to start a business with 3 friends in the mid-'90s. Alan talked about their aerospace. We bought a small business at 7330 North Broadway at the very far north end of Wichita and spent a decade growing it to several hundred jobs. I was proud of that. And so I know that from that experience that I can see how the Heartland is an ideal place to do business, and I'm proud that we're able to host this event as the State Department did. I told the story earlier. I was Secretary of State for, a handful of weeks, and a note came and said, hey, would you be willing to come to the American part of the Global Entrepreneurship Summit? And I wrote a small note back saying, only if it's in Kansas. Here we are. Thanks. I hope, too, you all get a chance to meet each other. There's an amazing group of people in the room today. I know many of you, but some of you I don't. There are remarkable foreign entrepreneurs in attendance today who do business here in the Heartland, and I hope some of you will join us in The Hague. There's an enormous amount of opportunity here in this region. I was 2 weeks ago now in Iowa touring a research facility called Corteva. It's an engineering firm that's working on engineering disease-resistant crops. It's the sort of innovation that changes the world, and it's happening right here in the Heartland. I spent a little bit of time working in small businesses. I want to talk today about the connectivity between what the State Department does and what you all do as entrepreneurs. I want to share some of the lessons I learned and how I integrate them into my work in the State Department and how I hope my team at the State Department does the same. 3 central ideas, 3 principles. First, we use these same ideas to generate good outcomes for President Trump's foreign policy. Second, we have an important component at assisting countries around the world in investing here and helping American companies succeed overseas. Economic diplomacy is very much at the core of what the State Department does. And then 2, I want to talk about the State Department, the leadership team there, and how I use the same things that I learned where you all are out taking risks to deliver on behalf of America using the team at the United States Department of State. First, President's foreign policy. You don't put entrepreneurship and foreign policy in the same buckets all the time, but I must say, one of the things I learned as a small businessman is if you do the things the way they were done before, you'll fail. You have to rethink the old ways of doing things, and President Trump has certainly done that. I ran a company that made plane parts. They came from hundreds of suppliers. Our value proposition was that we would consolidate those suppliers so that we could deliver a value-added product to our customers. Just an example, Ford entry doors on a commercial airplane had over 500 suppliers, 500 parts from over 65 suppliers. And we realized that we could reduce cost, help the customer become more efficient, and increase their purchasing efficiency as well by reducing storage costs and inventory for them. We did that. We also helped them reduce their assembly time. That approach worked. It taught me that success involves thinking differently. I do that today along with President Trump. A good example is North Korea. We came into the administration with missiles being fired and nuclear tests being conducted. Every approach taken over the past 2 decades had failed. Previous administrations had tried many approaches. We decided we would do something different. We coordinated a global effort, a global economic sanctions campaign to raise the stakes for the regime, to impose costs on them, but to do so at the same time by extending a diplomatic hand in pursuit of peaceful progress with North Korea. We're not done. Hard work remains. The President and I were in Hanoi now a couple weeks back to build on what had happened in the Singapore summit, but we've brought about a situation that has never occurred with respect to the Korean Peninsula. We currently have both the toughest sanctions in history as well as the most promising diplomatic campaign in history, too. We hope this combination will lead to a safer, more secure region in Southeast Asia and around the world. You know, another lesson I learned as an entrepreneur was the importance of forging strong partnerships. The aerospace, we seldom engaged in a project alone. We had supplier partners, and our customers were partners. We had lenders and shareholders all working together. We had to work with dozens of firms to deliver the product to our customers. We always made sure that the company's leaders knew our objectives, what it is we were trying to accomplish. And then we turned around and gave them access to the information they needed, what we had, the job requirements, inventory needs, all the deadlines that we were going to face together. I see this every day in diplomacy. America cannot do what it needs to do around the world alone. We have to bring together multiple partners under a single mission and empower each of those partners to deliver those results. I've seen this too often. I've seen in previous administrations where either America took it upon itself to resolve the problems alone, or we withdrew because the problem was too difficult, too big, too costly. We're trying not to do that. The Trump administration is reestablishing American leadership all around the world. And I can prove it. I've got a number of examples. Just last month, I was in Warsaw at a U.S.-led event co-hosted by our Polish friends, where we brought 60 nations together to work to secure peace in the Middle East. We had Arab and Israeli senior leaders sitting in the same room. They were discussing their shared challenges together. When's the last time that happened? And what was truly unique about it was that it didn't feel new, it didn't feel strained, it didn't feel challenged. It felt right because we had set the right conditions for them to begin to work together on a common set of objectives. We too are working on a broader objective. We call it MESA. It's our Middle East Strategic Alliance. It will, when it comes to fruition, be a broad spectrum of countries from the Gulf and from North Africa, all throughout the Middle East, aimed singularly at taking down threats from all across that region. It'll work on economic issues, it'll work on security issues, and we'll work on political issues. We'll work on meeting their energy needs as well. When we come together, when that group comes together, we will deliver good outcomes, most importantly, for the people of the United States with whom President Trump and I are charged keeping secure. Another great example is one that is much in the news today. It's the challenge that the Venezuelan people are facing. We were heartened to see the countries of South America be first in line to join our effort to restore democracy in Venezuela and to recognize interim President Juan Guaido. Through diplomacy, our team rallied partners to build a coalition that now amounts to over 50 nations, will ultimately achieve an outcome that the Venezuelan people are demanding and which they deserve. We also were able to put together an enormous coalition to defeat ISIS and its caliphate. The coalition is still together, and the caliphate is gone. 79 nations came from all parts of the world to join in taking down this threat from radical Islamic terrorism. I could go on, from Iran to North Korea, from the work that we've done to strengthen NATO, the coalition we're building out in the Indo-Pacific to counter the threat that China presents to the world. The Trump administration is working diligently to build the partnerships that you all do each and every day in your business life. We're empowering those partners to deliver on their own for their people and to have a set of shared objectives that deliver for the entire world. I want to talk about the second way that my time in small business works on behalf of what I'm trying to do at the State Department. It's the economic diplomacy that I spoke of earlier. You should know we have a dedicated team of diplomats that run programs and events. You had a chance to meet one of them this morning that engages in helping countries build their free enterprise systems all around the world. Today's event and the Global Entrepreneurship Summit itself in the Netherlands in June are just two examples. Today with us are over 23 women entrepreneurs from around the world. They're part of a State Department program that brings businesswomen to America to build relationships and learn alongside U.S. businesses. You know, March is Women's History Month. Susan's with me today. She reminds me every morning in March. It's a great opportunity to celebrate these women and many others all across America and the world who are starting their own businesses to build wealth for themselves and for their families. Here in the Midwest, we have a thriving community of women business leaders. In fact, Chicago has the highest concentration of female founders in the entire country. The State Department has a number of programs. I hope you will all learn about them and avail yourselves of them. We have programs that empower innovators to develop startups addressing social challenges all around the world in countries that aren't so rich as the Netherlands and the United States. Through that initiative, State Department has mentored over 8,400 startups in 136 emerging economies. These businesses have gone on to generate over $250 million in revenue and created 6,000 jobs, including at least 70 right here in the United States. And that leads me to my next point. Our economic diplomacy efforts are an important part and in complete alignment with what it is we're trying to do, delivering not only U.S. values, but delivering on the American interest where we find it as well. The goal of all of our work, all across the State Department, is to serve the American people. You are, in fact, our first client. That includes your economic interest. Many of you wouldn't know this. We have over 1,500 economic officers deployed around the world in embassies and in consulates. They can provide market insights. They can answer questions. They can connect you with local partners. They know the geography. Please avail yourself of this assistance. Too, we have another group of State Department officials. We call them political officers. They work alongside the economic team to fight back when we find out about corruption or political problems that our companies and businesses are running into around the world. We have foreign agriculture assistance officers as well. These agriculture officers promote our exports to lands all across the globe. And we also engage in workshops. Some of you had a chance to participate in them here today and tomorrow. Our mission of serving U.S. economic interests is deeply integrated into what we do at the State Department. And by the way, a footnote, we're always looking for real talent. The State Department prides itself on having a diverse workforce. There's many dimensions to that. I want to make sure everyone we hire is not from New York or Boston or Washington. We have talented people all across the Midwest, some of whom would simply not be aware of the enormous opportunities there are to serve America as diplomats. It has been an incredible privilege for this past year to serve as America's most senior diplomat. We need young people with language skills, with math skills. We hire engineers. We hire security officials, a broad range of skills brought to bear. And it's a great opportunity, a little bit to see the world, but mostly to serve our nation. Back to the main message. By the way, there are recruiters standing just off to my right here. The final thought about the connection, about the lessons that I learned in small business that I use now as the Secretary of State, is that leadership in every organization matters. The internal operations of the State Department oversee roughly 80,000 great people working on behalf of the United States. It's been an incredible privilege to lead that group. I always stress to them, first and foremost, is that we have an obligation. It's different than the one I had in the private sector. We have a responsibility to be good stewards of your money. When I ran Thayer Aerospace during budget season, it was always a set of tough questions. My investors and shareholders deserved that. The American taxpayer deserves very much the same. I would always remind people that money had to be accounted for in every single transaction we took. If we were going to take a risk, we needed to understand what that risk was. I bring that same standard of accountability to this job. I'll tell you a single story. It was in a budget meeting. It was in the early 2000s, just after 9/11. We had a big project that we were trying to undertake at a very difficult time all throughout the United States, and certainly a difficult time in our industry making airplane parts. I asked the team, I told them I thought we could come up with the resources. I believed we could find money for the project, but would this be the first of many? If I sign off on this now, you have to commit to me that you'll deliver, will measure, not inputs, but outputs and outcomes. How can you commit to me that you won't come back looking for more money 2 months or 6 months or 8 months from now? I guess they knew me well enough because they were prepared. They laid out a plan, a set of objectives, a set of measurements that we could reduce risk and account for each and every action that we were taking. I've done the same thing here at the State Department. I think it's next week. I will testify. You can all watch. I'll testify on the budget that the State Department has put forward, essentially the request that we will make to Congress to take money from American taxpayers to deliver on the very mission set which I'm speaking to you about today. You have my word. My team and I are committed to doing this in a way that will honor you and make you proud. I will tell you this too. Running a company taught me that the best ideas don't always come from the top. Certainly true today. I know that my team brings enormous experience to what it is we're trying to do. When I became the Secretary of State, I quickly realized that a lot of my time was spent rubber stamping decisions that came from elsewhere. I wasn't adding any value to this decision process. Just to give me the final word meant either they were looking for me to cover for them, or they were simply following a tradition that had taken place for years and years before. I have now changed all of the structure where at least a third of the decisions that used to come to me no longer do. That paper doesn't come to my desk. It makes our business more agile. More agile. It makes us faster. Our adversaries certainly are. We have greater efficiency. And most importantly, we've got an excited workforce. They know they're responsible. They know that we'll hold them accountable. They know they have a duty to keep me informed. But they also know they have the ball, and that if I've given them the right direction and they succeed, we will be rewarded. Our team will be rewarded. I want to close with just one final thought about the summit this June. It'll take place, as I said, on the 4th and the 5th. The following day, June 6th, 2019, will be the 75th anniversary of D-Day, a historic day where an assault force led by a great Kansan put tyranny on its heels and turned the tide in what was the deadliest conflict in human history. Throughout the rest of the war and in the rebuilding that followed, America led Europe out of the shadows and into a future democracy and a future of free enterprise. It was that system, the free enterprise system, which has proved to be the greatest economic model ever conceived. It is, as I travel the world and see all the others, it is the only system where a business started in a dorm room can disrupt a billion-dollar industry, and where risk takers can rise from the crowd if they'll work hard and have a good idea. People from all walks of life will use their talent and work hard and be successful. It's worthy of comparing what I see elsewhere, countries that don't have that model, comparing it to socialism, which puts government bureaucrats in control of the economy and which failed spectacularly every single place it has been tried. You know, in the decades following World War II, a man named Peter Drucker emerged as one of the original business management gurus. Many of you will have read his books. He had firm beliefs about the role of government in the private sector and the success that entrepreneurs can have in a free society. Not only economic success, but the freedom and the liberty that comes with that. He believed that when managed properly, businesses could protect freedom. It could protect the individual and create space for each of us to live the lives that we want. He wrote, quote, "Performing responsible management is the alternative to tyranny and our only protection against it." As each of you goes out from here and you create the next generation of great businesses, each of you must help to ensure the success and freedom of the free enterprise system in your country. And more importantly, all of us in this room must take our belief in the power of entrepreneurship out amongst the others in the world. It is worth evangelizing about. I look forward to seeing as many of you can make it over to The Hague in June for precisely that purpose. Thank you all for being here. I look forward to taking a few of your questions today. Thank you.